guys, how's it going? Laura with Garden Answer. In today's video, I want to talk about an article that I've been seeing quite a bit lately. I think there might be a few different versions, but the one I'm going to talk about today, I printed it out so I don't quote anything wrong, but it's titled, "Planting Trees in Square Holes Makes Them Grow Stronger and Faster." Lots of you guys have emailed us about this. We've had a lot of people share it with us. I've seen a lot of people sharing it just amongst themselves on social media. Because it's so popular, I thought it'd be fun to touch base with you guys about it. There are some things I agree with and some things I don't agree with in this article. And I actually went to one of the professionals in the industry that we talk with quite often. So her name is Stacy. She's a horticulturist that works at Spring Meadow Nursery. And it's an enormous growing facility that specializes in shrubs and trees. And whenever I need to bounce ideas, I always am texting Stacy and emailing her. And so anyway, we've had an interesting conversation going back and forth about this particular topic. So anyway, what I want to do is just unpack this article. I'm going to start reading it from the beginning, and then I'll just share my thoughts as we go down the line. Okay, introduction. If you plant a tree in a square hole, the tree becomes stronger and thrives more than if you planted it in a round hole. So if you're on a mission to plant trees and save the planet, then it's good to keep this tip in mind. Which, you know, second sentence in, when somebody's stating that if you're on a mission to plant trees and save the planet, then, you know, you need to try this brand new idea that I've never heard of before, like as an absolute, I always kind of want to take a couple steps back. Okay, next section is titled Planting in Round Holes. Usually when people plant trees, they make a round hole, which is true. They put the tree inside and then fill the hole with lots of rich compost and fertilizer, which I think is largely true. I used to use a lot of compost to backfill and I don't anymore. However, there are a few reasons why planting the tree in a round hole is terrible for the tree's roots and growth process. At first, your tree will have great success as the little sapling rapidly grows new roots that spread out into the fertile and fluffy soil. I can't disagree with that. But once the roots hit the poorer and compact ground at the perimeter of the hole, the roots won't like it, and they will turn and snake along the edge of the border in search of better conditions. And this is the first sentence where I can't agree with that, because you think about how strong trees' roots are. They are so strong. They are not lazy. They are like a force of nature. We have to really consider what trees we plant near our homes or sidewalks or roadways, because the roots can be so beastly that they buckle and break concrete. Like, roots are tough. So to think that a tree's roots can't grow out of that, you know, initial hole and into just native soil is just a little tough for me to wrap my brain around. Aside from that, I've never seen any sort of study or anything like that or trial where it says that trees' roots can't make it out from that initial circular hole. Because I can look out my greenhouse right now and I see tons of things we've planted in circular size shaped holes, and they're doing beautiful and they're established, not to mention all of the established trees around that were most likely planted in a round hole. Moving on, when the roots do this, they create a spiraling action around the edge of the hole, developing a circular root system. You could imagine how this would look if you've seen a plant growing in a container, which we've all seen root-bound plants. The roots will thicken and harden into a tight ring as they mature, creating a girdle that chokes the plant and in some cases results in severe stunting or death of your tree. So what this article is saying is if you plant your tree in a circle-shaped hole, those roots are going to go out. As soon as they meet native soil at the edge of your hole, they're going to start to circle. And they're going to create a root-bound situation like you would find in a plastic nursery container, which is just untrue. That is not going to happen. I mean, I'm not saying that if you have a severely root-bound plant and you plant it in your hole, that it won't continue growing like that unless you address the problem. If you have a severely root-bound plant, it doesn't matter if you have a square-shaped hole or a round hole. If you plant it without addressing that problem, it's still going to grow and be root-bound. But they're stating that if you plant any tree in a round hole, it's going to create this root-bound problem, which I just find to be a little bit far-fetched. The next section is titled Planting in Square Holes. The chances of your tree surviving will increase dramatically by merely digging a square hole instead of a round one when you plant the sapling, which I don't know how much more, success can be increased, like how much more dramatically. Like, I plant in round holes and I have probably a 95 to 99% success rate, which, I think that's pretty good. I mean, occasionally you lose one due to shock or due to a gopher or something like that, but it's not typically due to how you planted it. The roots won't develop a circular root system because, as systematic planting trials have shown, which there is no backing for what plant trial that is, there's no footnote of where I can find this trial, The roots are not good at growing around corners. When the roots hit the 90-degree angle of a square hole rather than snaking around to create a spiral, they spread out at the planting hole to colonize the surrounding native soil. Do you think that the roots really recognize whether it's a square or a circle in the end? Like, really? Again, this article is just riddled with kind of things that aren't backed up, like systematic planting trials. Well, which trials are those? Can you show me those trials? Because if you can, like, I definitely keep an open mind about things, and that's why these kind of subjects are interesting to me, because sometimes you do figure out something new. That's awesome. That's really good for your plants. But you want to make sure that it's like right or it's true before you carry on. Not only does the tree have a better chance of survival, but the speed of growth will drastically increase and the tree will become more resistant to environmental challenges like droughts. Well, I'm not going to argue with the fact that if you actually dug a square hole, because when it comes down to it, it doesn't matter if you dig a square or a round hole. In fact, when you dig a square hole, you're more likely to dig it bigger than you would a round hole. So as long as you're getting that hole 2 to 5 times bigger than the current width of the root ball, you are like increasing its chances of doing better, really, in the end. And the last section is titled, How to Guarantee Your Tree's Survival Even More. When you're planting a tree, before you fill up the hole with rich organic matter and fertilizer, fill it up with the soil that you just dug out, which I can't disagree with. Doing this will reduce the chances of the root's container effect behavior. So I used to use a lot of compost mixed in with native soil to backfill around the root ball, as well as a starter fertilizer, and I have backed way off on the compost. I only use a starter fertilizer in with my native soil around the root ball and have really good luck with that. And I do think that there are a lot of different ways that people do things and a lot of different ways that people have success. So I try not to be like, this is the absolute only way you can plant something and have success with it, because I think there are so many different factors that play in. I mean, climate, what you're planting, what kind of soil you have, and all those different kinds of things. So anyway, that's how I do it now. I have a hard time when somebody's telling you something absolute. And the last 2 sentences are, it's also important to remember to prune out any roots from your square hole before you plant the sapling. Root pruning triggers the production of compounds that stimulate root growth, which those 2 sentences don't really go together, like they're maybe poorly written. The first one says, it's also important to remember to prune out any roots from the square hole before you plant the sapling. And then the second one, so it's talking about pruning out roots of something in the hole apart from the sapling. And then the next sentence says, root pruning triggers the production of compounds that stimulate root growth, which makes me think they're talking about pruning the roots from your sapling because it triggers a production of compounds to stimulate root growth. It's a little confusing right there, and I feel like I wouldn't recommend anybody haul off and prune a bunch of the roots on their plants before they put it in the ground unless you know what you're doing. And that's the problem with articles that are a little bit short. They're not backed by any like real information or real studies or anything like that. And that's why I think it's important to do a little bit of research. I mean, you know, Erin and I talked about this article and we were formulating our own ideas, and then I bounced some of those ideas off of Stacy, and she linked a great article from the Utah State University Forestry Extension, which I will link down below. It's just full of really good tree planting information. So I recommend that you guys read that article. It's, even if you have been planting things forever, it's always good to brush up and read, some really good information like that. I don't know. I feel like it's good for me to do that every once in a while anyway. I will not be linking the original article down below because I only want to spread good information, and that website that it takes you to, it's just littered with ads all over, and it's a website I'm not familiar with, so that's kind of my first red flag on the article. Kind of seems like it was written in a way to where people might share it a lot and click on it a lot. Anyway, I don't know the ins and outs behind that, but I won't be linking it down below. So anyway, I think the takeaway from this article and from today's discussion is that it doesn't matter if you plant in a square hole or a round hole. You just want to make sure it's the proper size in the end. You want to go just as deep as the root ball currently is, and then 2 to 5 times wider. And if you can make it wider by digging it in a square shape versus a round shape, then be my guest. I don't think it's hurting anything. I'm going to still be digging round holes because that's what I've been doing forever and have had great luck with it. I don't think it will hurt anybody if you want to dig them in a square shape. And at the end of the day, I really don't think this article was really hurting anything either. The science behind the root growth was a little bit sketched to me. And anyway, just wanted to talk about it because I've seen it so much. Hope you guys enjoyed this video, and we will see you in the next one. Bye.